What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Greg Mack, and I'm back. Welcome to another episode of my podcast, Your Plan is in High Demand. Now, if you've been tuning in weekly, outside of episodes 2's Mass Shooting Crisis and episode 7's African American Dads and the Cycle of Hate, you might have noticed that from the other episodes, I'm specifically concentrating on the plan and its impact within our own homes. First and foremost, my belief is that the home stands and always will be the primary foundation of family life. What I'm saying to you, it is the heartbeat and the pulse that give others insight into the makeup of a particular family. Families like yours and mine. So take a moment and think about your actual home, your family. You know, the key things like where you live and how you live daily. Are you in a private community? Or are you in a community that's open to drive directly into and out of? Is your community safe? Are the people in your community, do you consider them good people? Do you ever have specific worries because of where the community that you live in is located? For me, I said it before, I grew up in a very close-knit community, but it's also one that had direct access to come in and out of every day. That's the reason why my parents were very strict on the time of day that me and my siblings needed to be home. And there was no question to be asked. You were due in the house at a certain time, period. And that's the way it went. Now, while we as children, we don't worry so much about the dangers of being in an open access community because we always hung out in sizable kid groups. You know, we were taught to be very vigilant, especially, when you had those creepy cars come by, unknown people, cars look suspicious, tracking in and out of the neighborhood, or people getting in and out of cars that don't look the part or look like they belong. We were taught to be very vigilant and to make sure we stayed away from those kind of people and not get anywhere near those vehicles. Even if they stopped to ask, hey, do you know where so-and-so live? We might answer that question, but we would ask questions like, I don't know you, so who are you? And why do you need to know where a certain house is or a certain person lives? That's just the way we did business. And if you didn't do it that way, you find out when you get home what's going to take place. Now, to make sure we stayed vigilant and kept that way, our parents, but especially my pops, he would discuss that mandated family plan. And it targeted from the time you went to school, returned home, completed homework, did your chores, and then you go out to play, and what time you had to be back for in the evening. It also included the weekends, holidays, and summers. There was a plan for everything. I used to be like, man, we don't get a chance to get away with anything because this man and this woman that are our parents, if we don't make sure things happen and stayed on that mandated plan, we knew the hammer was going to fall. So, it was difficult growing up, but it kept us safe and it made sure we stayed on track daily. Stayed on track daily. Of course, as a kid, you do have some failed moments here and there where you just go the opposite of what the plan is. But when you got home or you prayed to get home, then you know what was going to happen and it was not going to be good for you. So you did what you needed to do. Now, I want to introduce everyone to the Harper family. Harper family includes dad and mom. They have a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. They live in a very nice 2-story, 4-bedroom home. But it's a great neighborhood and a well-known and safe neighborhood. But anyone can drive in and out of that neighborhood at any given time. It was just very open. It's clean and inviting, so you didn't see a lot of riffraff anywhere. A lot of unknown people. It was just a rare thing. It's a community that was in a well-known city and one of the top-ranked communities to live in. So he had a lot of kids around there, a lot of great families. And then the Harper family, they were actually one of the best families anyone could have as a neighbor to share the community with. Dad, well-known attorney, Mom, a high school teacher. Daughter is a high-level straight-A student. And the son is a standout hockey and baseball player. So, they have some great kids. Now, because of the Harper's lifestyle and where they live and how things go for them every day, they just simply go about daily activities with little to no worry, because for years, the family's individual and collective day-to-day plans, they seldom change. So why worry? Well, 2 days ago, one of the neighbors that lived just 3 streets over endured a pretty big break-in. The good part was they were away from the home during the break-in, so they didn't know it was going down. And their home sit closest to the main road entrance of the community. Because of its location and reputation, no one ever suspected such a matter to happen, not in this neighborhood of this community. The burglarized home, it had an alarm system, and it also had cameras, but the family rarely even turned them on because nothing ever happened. And, the other neighbors always watched out for your homes. Unfortunately, for the Harper's neighbors, they lost more than $40,000 in jewelry, computer, and video equipment that was stolen from the property. Obviously, it was done at night. The criminals had on ski masks and dressed in all black, so they weren't able to tell this obviously while they were gone because they never turned the cameras on or the alarm. There was also more than $20,000 worth of damage done inside the home, so they really did a number on the home, to include graffiti left in every room of the home. And the graffiti, it was almost like it was a targeted community. It said, "You uptight pricks are no better than we are." So I don't know if this was a personal vendetta or they just looked at a particular family in the neighborhood. Is this family known to the bad guys or what? We don't know. Now, the Harpers and the rest of the community, they were absolutely in shock once they learned about the break-in. So the Harper family, they had a meeting that same evening. Hey, Dad was like, hey, to avoid any danger in situations like this, he came up with a plan to ensure, everybody in the family made it home safely at or about the same time, or there was communications, constant communications daily. Just until things died down, he wanted to make sure that no one got to the home by themselves until he came home or a neighbor or something to give the all clear. They used the plan for about 8 or 9 days. Obviously, since there were no more break-ins within the community or the surrounding areas, everything got comfortable. Despite the good news, though, I got to give Dad and Mom credit. They didn't want to take any chances. And it seemed like a good plan, to follow for at least another week. However, after a couple of days, Mom and Dad felt like the plan had run its course. Nothing else was going on, so why continue to plan? Because nothing in the neighborhood was happening. No more burglaries or anything like that. So they kind of continued to go back to the schedule that they already had. And it was a great plan on the temporary because nothing happened. But the problem is they got comfortable. So, they said, Dad said, let's get back to some normalcy around here. So the family, of course, everyone, they agreed. Let's just go back to being the way we were. Nothing's happening. After a few months gone by, there are no burglaries or theft to speak of. So the Harpers, just like everyone else in the community, they labeled it, they said the break-in, it's just an isolated incident, so we don't need to worry. The community was so confident, the local police department been conducting more random drive-thrus and drive-bys than usual. And then it happened. The Harpers were packing and planning to go just on an overnight camping trip from Friday morning to Saturday afternoon of that week. Apparently, an unknown, out of the wild blue, beautiful black and gold Mercedes-Benz passes the home multiple times on Thursday afternoon while Dad and son, they were packing up the SUV, in the driveway, and they saw the vehicle go by multiple times during that day. And then all of a sudden, the Mercedes-Benz stopped just in front of the driveway. Well-dressed man, well-dressed woman, beautiful couple gets out, introduces themselves, and asks about the community. And you know how it goes. How is it to live here? How are the schools? How are the people? Those types of questions. What kind of community is it? Are the people good people? And he states that a few days ago, him and his wife came across a home for sale, which was true, just a few streets over. And they had driven by it, but hadn't actually stopped. They just did a drive-by a couple of times just to see what it looked like on the outside. And then they had planned to contact a realtor the very next day. But, Dad, of course, he was more than happy to answer questions. He even tells them, him and the family's packing for the weekend family camping trip. But he didn't think to mention there was only going to be an overnight trip from Friday morning until Saturday afternoon. Now, here's where adults sometimes get too comfortable with other people. And we do this because they might talk, look, or dress, or carry themselves a certain way that makes us feel, okay, they meet our standards, so we engage them without little reservations. It's kind of just, okay, these folks seem pretty good. The home that was for sale had the same exact footprint as the Harper family home. So Dad is so comfortable and the conversation is so inviting, he offers to show the gentleman and his wife the inside of their home. He takes them inside, meets Mrs. Harper, and she's delighted as well. They have great exchange. They show them around the home, and they was there for more than an hour. Soon after that, the gentleman and his wife said, hey, we have to get going. And it got so comfortable with Mom and Dad, they introduced them to the kids. By the time they left, there was exchanges of handshakes, hugs, and then contact information. Because Dad and Mom, they're excited now. They got new friends. And they learned that the gentleman and his wife, they have two children, a 17-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. So they can't wait for the children to meet one another. So they are super excited. Now that the couple's left, Dad and son, they complete the pack out. And then the family beds down for the night so that they can get the early morning and get ready to get up and go. So now they're up. They make their way out from home and head out to the camping site. And then they get back home on a rainy late Saturday evening. They enjoyed their time while they was out there. And then they, now they're back home and it's raining. They're tired. They had a really long day, jet skiing and all those good things. And then overnight and then on the way home, it was raining. So really tired, didn't sleep much. So they decided to call it a night around 11 p.m. Dad, he's a deep sleeper. So Mom, she typically got on headphones trying to play music or earbuds, because he snores so loudly all through the night. And daughter's always the same, got earbuds in as well and listening to music. And the son is like, Dad, he's a deep sleeper as well. So, it's again approximately 11 p.m. They're back home from the road trip. All the lights are out. Doesn't look like anyone's home. The Harpers, they have an alarm system, but they don't set it. They never really do. Dad usually checks, all the windows and doors to make sure they're secure. So he did a half-hearted check and felt like, okay, it's a rainy night, and he just assumed that he checked everything. But for whatever the reason, Mom had gone out and came back in, and she did not necessarily lock the door or didn't remember doing it, but Dad never asked. So when she came back in, he never did a recheck. So by midnight, everyone's asleep. And at about 2 a.m., the rain is steady, a little bit of thunder and lightning, in the background. Then all of a sudden, the sliding glass door opens to the kitchen. And that sliding glass door to the kitchen leads to the backyard. Now, 4 armed assailants wearing all black with ski masks from head to toe, all black, and flashlights. They quietly enter the home. They don't believe anyone's home because the family's supposed to be on a camping trip. Assailant number 1, who's the leader, and assailant number 2, they decide, okay, we're going to take the first floor. And then assailants 3 and 4, they decide to take the second floor, per the guidance from assailant 1. Now, assailant one, obviously believing no one's home because he actually thinks, okay, oh man, there's no one home. Don't see a vehicle, don't see anything. The lights were out. So he says, okay, let's check out. Let's start in the bedrooms first, and then you guys take it upstairs. We got downstairs. But he tells them, if you come across anyone, detain them, shut them up, bring them downstairs with as little drama as possible. He further tells the team, use the threat of your weapons if things get loud and chaotic, and threaten to harm if you have to. So assailant number one takes the bedroom to the far left, which is mom and dad's room. And assailant number two, he takes the bedroom on the far right, which is an office / your guest room. Now assailant one reaches the door, the dad and mom room, and he hears loud snoring. So he alerts assailant number two, who finds nothing on the other room other than the office, the empty office. Now just as assailants 1 and 2 enter mom and dad's room, there's screams from upstairs. Mom awakens, jumps up, bright lights in her face, threatening voices from the assailant. Dad wakes up because mom's in a panic, and they're told to shut up as the charging sound of the pump action gun, which he has, is heard. So dad hears a scream, of the daughter and the kids, and for whatever the reason, he decides to charge towards the door. Unfortunately for dad, he catches the butt of the shotgun to the face, and it knocks him unconscious, and he's bleeding. Now mom, she's forced face bound by assailants 1 or 2, and unfortunately, she's sexually assaulted by both of them. Then they tie her up, tape her mouth shut, and they move her and dad taped up, really good, taped up, roped up and everything, into the living room. Now at this point, the son has also been tied up with his mouth taped up and shut and brought downstairs. But for whatever the reason, assailant number 3, he felt the need to really beat and then sexually assault the daughter. And then he finally tied her up to get her mouth shut and brought her downstairs. Now moments later, everyone's downstairs in the living room. Dad is unconscious and bleeding. Assailants 2, 3, and 4, they rummage through the home, taking jewelry, cash, and anything else they could find, while the leader, assailant 1, he keeps the family at gunpoint. Now at this point, the assailant, he seems pretty satisfied with the score, and he's ready to leave. But for some reason, assailant number 2, he remembered a small safe in the guest room, the office guest room. So with dad still unconscious, he unties mom's feet, and he takes her into the room and forces her to open the safe. The safe has more than $5,000 in cash, approximately 30 gold coins, a unique music box, an expensive family heirloom ring that mom inherited from her great-grandmother. She does not want to give her that ring, but the sound of that shotgun pump action really made her think hard and long about, okay, I just need to do what they tell me to do. So assailant number 2, he returns with mom, and then assailant number 1, he's ready to go. Okay, we got what we need. Let's look at getting out of here. However, without thinking, mom blatantly says, "Oh my God, I recognize your voice. You are the gentleman who came by with your wife a couple of days ago and asked us about the community and the schools. We even gave you our contact information and gave you a tour of our home and talked about our kids meeting each other, exchange information, the whole 9 yards." And all of a sudden, mom now realizes she's put the family in even more danger, especially because the assailants were ready to leave the home, believing that they got what they needed and they couldn't be identified. But mom was certain that she recognized the voice. So, assailant 1 removes his mask, and he is indeed the man from a couple of days ago. Now, the assailants tell mom to shut up, and they confer in private to decide what to do with the family. Now, they don't want to harm the family, but they've been compromised, and they had already made an agreement that, hey, we can be identified. And they sexually assaulted mom and a daughter. So We're talking DNA evidence. Mom is pleading with them, please leave, please leave. We won't say anything, we won't say anything. Dad is unconscious, unaware of what's happening. And then mom also, says, hey, Dad, we won't say anything to Dad that we were sexually assaulted. We will keep our mouths shut. But unfortunately for the family, the assailants knew that, hey, we have to make sure nothing is said. So they used a silencer on one of the weapons. And then they actually killed Dad in front of everybody just to make sure they got the point. However, just as they were planning to leave, they still didn't feel as though they were convinced that the family wouldn't say anything, and because of DNA purposes. So, unfortunately for the family, hundreds of rounds was fired into the family. An absolute massacre. To make matters worse and to make the situation even more disheartening, the assailants decided we need to make sure this is never found out. So they poured gasoline all through the homes, all over the bodies. They set the home afire, and they even turned on the gas to the stove. Obviously, the assailants got away. The fire was realized by neighbors. They contacted police, fire, and rescue. They hit the scene, working diligently to see if they could save the family. And unfortunately, the rain had already slowed down. The home exploded because of the gas. So emergency services, they wasn't even sure if anyone was home because the neighbor mentioned that the family had gone on a camping trip for the weekend. But once everything subsided, police and EMS discovered the Harper family bodies. In the end, the Harper Family Trespasser Tragedy was ultimately ruled a homicide, and with the bodies burned to unrecognition, the case went cold, and it's remained as such until this day. With that said, listen, America, this was truly a tragedy. Yeah, it's fiction, but it was based on something that happened for real. So I work to give you a realistic feel for you, and please think about it. Take the time to attentively think about you and your family and whether your home security plan provides enough support to prevent break-ins that can lead to some type of violent act like this one. Take a closer look at the quality and production of your alarm system if you have them, your outdoor lighting and camera systems if you have them. If you don't, at least get lighting systems that light up brightly when someone approaches, especially if you don't have a pet, like in the case of the Harpers. I know we're all on budgets and that type of thing there for the most part, a lot of us. But hey, lighting can be done all around your home. And the type of lights, when they come on, it comes on because somebody walks up and they're really bright. Do whatever it is you need to do to protect your family from break-ins. This type of break-in was as damaging as it could possibly be, because you're talking about a family and a mom who made the mistake of saying she knew who the assailant was, and it cost the family their lives. Not only that, they were burned beyond recognition. Now, with that said, I'd like to thank all the listeners for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this particular episode. There's going to be plenty more coming. Do me a favor, subscribe, and give me that feedback, and your feelings on the Harper family tragedy. Yes, it's a fiction story, but I take the fiction story based on a real perspective, and I don't give names of the family. I just go mom, dad, sister, brother. I try to keep it at that because I just want to have respect for any family that go through such a thing. So I'll say to you, please tune in next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as we look to get our listeners involved in the daily travel plan group exercise. Yes, it is a group exercise for all of us. It's going to be a lot of fun. So tune in. I got to go for now. That's all, good people. Thanks for listening. God bless. Have a good evening. And always remember, a plan that succeeds is a plan that fulfills one's needs. Thank you and good night.